Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? If you can hear me, let me know by commenting below. Say hi. I'm going to pull up Facebook, make sure I'm live. Comment below if you are hearing me. If you're here, please comment below. Awesome. Looks like we are live on Facebook. It is 1:30. Glad you could all join us. I am excited to speak with you today about a topic that is the number one tweeted side effect of prednisone. Pretty surprising, huh? Sleep issues like insomnia and nightmares, trouble sleeping, nighttime awakening is very common in people who are on prednisone. So I wanted to talk to you about that today and help you find healthy ways to combat that side effect. These tips are evidence-based, and I've tried and tested them myself because when I was on prednisone, it was horrible, and the side effect of insomnia really rocked my world. So I did a ton of research to figure out how to make life more pleasant and get more sleep. So I'm going to switch my screen so that you can see what I am talking about, and then we will start our presentation. Okay, start the slideshow. Okay. All right. So prednisone and sleep, the number one tweeted side effect of prednisone. So what are we going to talk about today? First, we're going to talk about some surprising side effect statistics. Kind of already gave one of them away. And then we'll talk about how prednisone causes insomnia. Next, we'll talk about weight gain and how insomnia is contributing to that weight gain. Next, we'll talk about healthy sleep habits, which is what you can do about it. Finally, we will find ways to share this with you. If you comment below, you can get a handout of these tips. So first of all, in the prednisone survey, I thought that prednisone's number one side effect would be weight gain and that number two would be insomnia, but I was wrong. And if you want to see a more in-depth discussion of that, go back to my Dr. Megan Prednisone Pharmacist page, and you can see a deep dive into our survey results. But I was surprised to see that insomnia was only number 5. That of all of the challenges of people taking prednisone, that insomnia is number 5. The reason I was surprised is because there's a study of people's Twitter results of what they've tweeted about. And the number one side effect people talked about when it came to prednisone was insomnia. And 8.6% of all tweets mention insomnia. So I thought it would be higher up than it is. Of the same study, it was just below that. It was 8.2% that mentioned weight gain. And I'm guessing that maybe this is because it's a lot more, politically correct or something to say, oh, I didn't sleep last night because I'm on this medicine, instead of saying, oh, I've gained 15 pounds in the last month because of this medicine. Nobody really wants to admit that they are gaining weight. So I'm grateful for all of you who did, so that I can help you with that in the coming webinars, Facebook Lives. So then in this study, it said that there is no explicit mention of insomnia as a side effect on the list of side effects. So when you get your prescription and there's a list of side effects that you're supposed to expect, for some reason, insomnia is not on there, even though it's the number one tweeted thing. So how can we deal with it? Let's find out more. So how does prednisone cause insomnia? Prednisone is a mimic. It looks to our body just like our natural hormones that affect the adrenal glands and like cortisol, for example. So when we take prednisone, the cortisol is the hormone that is in charge of keeping us alive. So it's the fight or flight hormone. So if there's a tiger chasing us, we can either run as fast as we can or we can fight back. And the other option is to freeze. And so with prednisone, it's hijacking that system and making it so we have more of that stress hormone running through our bodies. It's great if you need to run away from that tiger, but it doesn't work so well if you want to fall asleep. Mother Nature made it so that it's hard to fall asleep when we are being attacked, which is great, but not so great for those who need restful sleep. Next, prednisone depletes melatonin. Now, melatonin is the hormone in our bodies that help us regulate our sleep cycle. So melatonin is released when it's dark outside. It's released when we have triggers for bedtime, like you brush your teeth. And it's released in a cycle. So every night it's released. And then throughout the night, it's released a little bit less. Right at bedtime, it's released the most. And then in the day, there's little melatonin released. It's kind of the opposite of the cortisol, which is supposed to be high in the morning to help us wake up. And it's supposed to be very low at nighttime when we fall asleep. But prednisone is keeping it up there, especially when we're on high doses of prednisone. So next, let's talk about stress. So somebody who's taking prednisone probably has a lot of stress going on because they're taking it for a really good reason. Either they are going to die if they don't take it, like me. I was almost going to bleed to death if I didn't take it. So that's kind of stressful. And other life situations it's harder to deal with them because of the prednisone. Prednisone kind of changes our outlook on life, and so it's harder to relax. And the next one we'll talk about is the disease. So if somebody's taking prednisone for a breathing issue, for example, like say they're taking it for COPD, and that's when you have a hard time breathing. And so if prednisone is helping, then maybe you can sleep better because the disease is getting under better control. But maybe the disease itself is causing you to lack sleep. So maybe you're waking up coughing. And so if your disease causes you to wake up, prednisone may make it harder for you to fall back asleep. Next is anxiety. So back to that stress I was talking about and the cortisol, prednisone gives us a heightened sense of anxiety, heightened sense of what is wrong, and it's harder to calm down. So between all of those things, it's just harder to relax, to fall back asleep. Then nightmares. Somehow prednisone can give you more vivid nightmares and things that you saw right before bedtime. So for example, say you are on Facebook and you see some old friends. You might have a nightmare about one of those friends just because it was top of mind when you fell asleep. And you might not typically get nightmares like that, but while you're on prednisone, you might. So there are lots of other reasons prednisone causes insomnia, but I thought I would just give you an overview. Next question we're going to cover is, I'm going to let the page load, insomnia and weight gain. So how does prednisone causing insomnia contribute to the weight gain that is often seen by people taking prednisone? So first of all, you take your prednisone, and as I mentioned in the previous slide, that causes the body to feel like it has high cortisol, and that can lead to the insomnia. Insomnia alone can cause your metabolism to change. So this is just insomnia right now. So it can cause the hormones that are normally released while we're sleeping to not be released as high or in the right timing. So some of them help us to not store fat, to build up muscle, and when insomnia happens, the opposite happens. We start storing fat and losing muscle, and that all contributes to weight gain. So we want to avoid that as much as possible by getting restful sleep. So what are some ways to get good sleep? So sleep hygiene is the fancy term for it. I'm going to call it also healthy sleep habits. So number one is to limit daytime naps. Now some people have conditions that are really exhausting and all they can do is just survive. And that's understandable, and you need naps. And if possible, try to limit those to 30 minutes or less, because if you are sleeping during the day, it's a lot harder to get the sleep you need at night and to have that proper melatonin release. Next is to avoid stimulants. Now, prednisone alone is pretty much a stimulant. So you're already getting a little kick when you take it first thing in the morning. So if you can, not use caffeine after lunch. And there are other things that are stimulants that you may not know about, like over-the-counter medicines like Sudafed is a stimulant. There are also a bunch of prescription drugs that can cause stimulation, and I can talk about those on a future episode of Dr. Megan's Q&A. But for now, just avoid using caffeine. And then it's super important to get exercise, whatever you can tolerate. I know some people are taking prednisone because of rheumatoid arthritis or other joint conditions that are very painful and miserable, and exercise is a new complication for them. So if you don't already have a good exercise plan in place, I'd suggest you go to see a physical therapist or an exercise physiologist. There are lots of options as far as people who can help you find exercises that you can do in whatever condition you are in, whether it's just head lifts because you're stuck in bed, or whether it's gentle yoga or other options. You can find something that you can do. And so this is extremely important to help you sleep well. If your body isn't tired out, then you won't be able to get restful sleep. And I've noticed for me, if I don't exercise, not only am I not tired enough necessarily to fall asleep and stay asleep, but I also have more pain. So it's harder to fall asleep because there's joint pain or back pain because I haven't been using those muscles and joints. Next is foods. So for some people who have sensitivities to foods, it can keep them up at night. So for people who have peptic ulcer disease or gastroesophageal reflux disease or GERD or acid reflux, they need to avoid things like chocolate and marinara sauce, and there's a whole list of things to avoid. Talk to your doctor about it and just try eliminating things and see what works. See if there's something that's keeping you up at night. And be careful about which foods you consume. Next topic is so important. It's natural lighting. So during the day, try to get sunrise light. Try to go outside when the sun first comes up and get that blue, beautiful sunrise light in your eyes. It'll help set your melatonin because, like I said, the melatonin is being depleted. So it'll help tell melatonin when to actually kick in. And get daytime light. Tell your body that this is daytime. And then when it isn't daytime, like when it is dark outside, respect that. Tell your body that it is dark sleeping time by consistently turning your lights dim, turning off your screens. Stop using your computer, your iPad, your cell phone, whatever it is, whatever screen you use, stop using it after dinner or whatever time you set. And then, like, at least 1 to 2 hours before you want to fall asleep, stop using screens. And that way, that blue light that your body knows is sunrise, daylight color, that you will be telling your body that I'm not using any of these screens. So there's no blue light coming in to tell my brain that it's awake time. And if you really have to use screens, then there are settings that you can change. So I'd suggest you change them. On iPhones, you can turn it on the nighttime mode. On most monitors, you can have it kind of turn orangish so that it's turning off that bright blue lighting. Next is a bedtime routine. Now, this is the biggest foundation. So if you can set a bedtime routine that's consistent and every night, the same time, the same things you do, that really helps to combat insomnia. So even if it's the weekend, going to bed at the same time and following the same routine is really helpful. It's hard for your sleep-wake cycle to regulate you when it's not consistent. So find a routine and stick with it. And in that routine, make sure that you're doing something relaxing. For me, I read non-stimulating things like poetry or scriptures or non-fiction things, because for me, when I start a fiction book, I'm stuck reading that until the fictional story is resolved. So that's not a good strategy for me. And, not watching TV, things like that at your bedtime. Always brushing your teeth, taking your vitamins, whatever it is you do them consistently. Come up with that plan and do it every night. I know when you are taking prednisone, you're sick, you're not feeling well, it's hard to do anything. But if there's one thing you can get down, it's getting down a steady bedtime routine. Next is a pleasant sleep environment. So in pharmacy school, they taught us that your bedroom should be for only 2 things, sleep and sex. And so only use your bedroom for those 2 purposes. Don't have a TV in there. Don't have a clock that lights up the room that you can see what time it is. If you need to, use an eye mask if it's too bright. If you can, get, dark shades. And if sound is a bother for you, then you can wear earplugs. You can get a fan to be blowing to make noise. You can get noise machines. You can get an app on your phone that's a noise machine. There are so many ways to make your sleep environment more pleasant. Another thing is to keep the temperature of your room cool. The cooler, the more deeply you'll sleep. Not too cold or you can't fall asleep, right? And then my final tip is breathing. So our bodies can't fall asleep if our heart rate is too high. So if you just ran around the block, your heart rate will be really high. You can feel it just beating super fast, more than once per second, and you can't fall asleep after you did something like that. So breathing deeply is important because it will slow down your heart rate. And there's a technique from a sleep doctor that I learned called the 4-6-7. So if you imagine breathing in on 4, so in 2, 3, 4, and then hold it for 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then breathe out for 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and repeat that. And if you're checking your heart rate, you'll notice it's slowing because you are pushing down your breathing, your respiratory rate. They are connected. If your heart rate goes up, then your breathing goes up. If your breathing goes down, your heart rate goes down. So it's a great way to improve your breathing to help relax you. And if that doesn't work, you can try meditation or yoga, things that help you relax. There are a lot of meditation apps like Calm that talked me through a few prednisone nights. It will tell you a story or talk you through a meditation, and it helps you just turn that prednisone anxiety brain off and just focus on your breathing and relaxing. And that can help you fall asleep. Those were the healthy sleep habits or healthy sleep hygiene. If you want a copy of that, follow the instructions below. I'll put in the link for you. And I'm excited to talk more about it in the future. Just so you know what's coming up, our outline for the upcoming Facebook Live. Next week, first of all, we'll be talking about prednisone weight gain. And so next week, we'll be talking about how prednisone causes weight gain and answering why you feel so hungry on prednisone. The week after that, March 21st, we'll talk about the consequences of prednisone weight gain, so why we want to avoid it. The following week, March 28th, we will talk about which foods to avoid while on prednisone. On the week 4, we will talk about which foods should we eat. So what do we need while on prednisone? And on week 5, we'll talk about how to get the right nutrition while on prednisone. So I'm really excited to talk to you about all of these topics, and we will see you next time on March 14th, 12:30 Pacific time.